you are. There we go. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 12th, 2023 regular meeting of the City of Revere Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. My name is Joe Gravelisi, and I serve as Mayor Arrigo's appointee as chair of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. And then also on screen here to the left, City Council President Patrick Keefe, also an ex officio member of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. We have members joining us both in person and virtually, so I'll do a quick roll call of attendance. So Anayo.
Sorry, here. I'm here. Can you hear me now? Sorry about that.
Yes, thank you. And Claire. Deb Frank, I know she mentioned she's out of the country today, so hopefully for good reasons. Dean Harris, perfect. Jan, I see is not here currently, so let's see if she joins us. I mentioned Councilor Keefe and myself, and Layla.
Present.
Terrific. And then that's here for the mayor. So okay, so that's now that we have a quorum present, we can begin with the agenda. I also want to just briefly apologize. It was brought to my attention by the city clerk that the agenda that I had sent to her did not get onto the city website due to an error on my part in putting in the software. So that's on me. So apologies to anyone that was looking for that. It is up now, and we'll proceed through it. So that apologies for that, and certainly feel free to flag that for my attention if you see that happening again at any point. So to start with, I'm going to just start with a few updates from the chair's seat. The first thing I just want to mention, it's not necessarily an official order of business, but I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that this is the final meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board under Mayor Arrigo's tenure as mayor, which is certainly bittersweet news for me personally, as a friend, and also, as someone who's tried to serve the city in ways that I can. He's certainly been a tremendous leader across a number of fronts, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot about that over the next week, but I also just want to specifically share my gratitude to him for supporting the creation of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. I know it's something that we'd adopted as an ordinance a long time ago, but to really actually spearhead getting it underway, making sure that we got some funding and have a direction, just really grateful to Mayor Arrigo. So I just want to thank him. Certainly I think I speak for all the members of the board if anyone has anything else they want to share on that. But we certainly look forward, Council President Keefe, to your time as the acting or interim mayor, because I know that you'll continue to, just as Mayor Arrigo did, support the goals of this board and work with everyone to try to make it as strong as it can be. Thank you for that. Great. So another thing that I wanted to just do a quick update on before I dive a little bit deeper into programs later is funding sources. And it'll be a good segue into Anayo's treasurer check-in. So as I mentioned, Anayo will give us the current fund balance, but we've been funded by allocations of free cash over the last 2 fiscal years that Mayor Arrigo and the City Council had set aside, which we're very grateful for. We've also been exploring additional funding opportunities as well. So in conjunction with the mayor's office, I've had conversations about ARPA funding and what may be available there. And I know that there's still some questions that are up in the air about that. And also Mass General Hospital's process for determination of need funds, as affordable housing is certainly something that they've identified as an important priority to fund as a social determinant of health. So those are 2 areas that we've really explored. And then I know that Anayo has been great about also looking into what kinds of private funding opportunities might exist through financial institutions or philanthropy. And that's certainly something that we'll want to explore as well. So before I turn it over to Anayo, does anyone have any questions, comments, feedback on that piece? No? All right, well, Anayo, I think that's a good segue just to check in both on current finances and then also any thoughts that you have on that fundraising piece.
Sure. So first of all, thank you for that introduction. I also want to say very proud and very honored to have met Mayor Arrigo, and I wish him the best in his upcoming endeavors. He was an outstanding mayor, and I wouldn't have been on this committee without his approval and also his support. As far as the account review, I checked with Asante Newton last week. The account remains the same at $849,783 exactly. That's where we stand right now. As far as pursuing additional funding or fundraising activities, I think now that we have our mission statement together, it's a lot easy to now approach the various different fundraising opportunities with the proposal. So at this particular time, I have not moved forward with that, but that is the next on my agenda.
Thank you, Anayo. The next piece I wanted to check in on, and I know that Jan is still, and we wish her all the best in her continued recovery from surgery, so I know that she's not present currently. Layla, I don't know if you've had a chance to talk a bit about the mission statement at all.
No, I can talk with her because I know she's, for the surgery is very hard for her. But let me tell you, this week on April 4, I've attended the planning for affordable housing production and preservation because it's not we created the mission statement and the goals. We have to look at it. Federal agents and nonprofit they are working for years. So we meet with the Undersecretary Jennifer Maddox for DHCD, Mark Curtis, and the other they have they can give us more deep information. We can hold the finance because in this moment with the new government, they have new budget. This allow for all Massachusetts, so we can work with them. So I take all information from them, and it's just make an appointment and work with them, try to complete our missing statement, be a reality with working with another federal and nonprofit of Massachusetts.
Great, thank you for that update. Certainly, that's another great example of opportunities that we can pursue as we continue to get ourselves sorted out and together. So I appreciate that that check-in. And actually, one other thing that I wanted to do before we got into the affordable homeownership project, which I think is going to be the bulk of what we discuss, is I did want to just do, usually at this time we'll have sort of city updates, usually from Tom's desk, and I'm going to read a few things that Tom sent me before having Lorena come up to speak as well. So the following piece, I'm just reading directly from what was sent from Tom Spiroski, from the sort of Office of Planning and Economic Development. So a few pieces. The housing production plan and some consultancy work for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board has now been fully funded. And so Tom is now soliciting 3 quotes for the project. He's reached out to 3 consultants and put the listing online. So there's a deadline to submit proposals, which was 2 days ago. And they're hoping to get back competitive proposals. And so they'll report those to us moving forward. But the goal is to move forward in May with a consultant to do that work. So not Tom's words, my words. That'll be obviously a great opportunity for us as a board to engage with that housing production plan and make sure that it takes into account goals that we set here through the trust fund board, both like philosophically, then also specific projects we want to do, and then also anything we might want to do in conjunction with the housing authority too, since I know that that'll be an important part of the housing production plan. Next piece from Tom was about ARPA funds. So he just basically that's on hold for now, which makes sense. I think that that's something that's the case for a lot of priorities at the moment. Tom had mentioned at the last few meetings the MBTA Communities Act and Revere's belief or submission that it's in compliance with the MBTA Communities Act. I think I'm using those words correctly. So Lorena may be able to add some color to this because he mentioned that they'll be starting with MAPC to model compliance with MBTA communities. If the models show that we don't comply, then the plan is to initiate technical assistance with the Mass Housing Partnership to try to adjust zoning accordingly. And then he had talked a bit about the affordable housing ownership project, which I'll get to when we get to that piece of the agenda. But before we do that, I did want to introduce Lorena, if you wanted to come up and say hello, since we're fortunate enough to see you on Zoom at our first few meetings. It's great to have you here in person now that you're officially working as a community development planner.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me some time to introduce myself to the trustees. My name is Lorena Scalero. I'm the new community development planner. I am also a Revere resident. I live in West Revere, next to or close by to the Susan B. Anthony Middle School. My background is in public service. I have 4 years of experience in working with the city of Medford, where I served in different capacities, but overall I was very instrumental in administering many of its pilot programs for COVID-19 response and relief. I also worked in the community development office, procurement office, and in my last role, I was the federal funds manager, where I was responsible for tracking the spending and reporting for the American Rescue Act plan, and we received $48 million. So I'm really excited, and in all sincerity, what sparked my interest in getting involved in Revere was the establishment of this board. So I'm truly delighted to join you all and learn about the breadth of the impact of the housing crisis that Revere has experienced, and working with you all to learn more about ways we can create resources and opportunities to push forward more affordable housing, dignified housing, and permanent housing.
Thank you very much. And I'll see if anyone else has any questions as well, although I did have a question that I ask people whenever they start a new job, so I'm going to ask you the same thing. 3 days in, what has surprised you so far?
How welcoming the city staff are, which should not be that much of a surprise, but
No, I know what you mean, not like you expected them to be unwelcoming, but I think it is true that there is a great, welcoming, supportive environment.
Yeah.
Certainly I noticed that, when I walk in just as a member of the board. That's great. Well, really glad to have you. Thank you for participating in the first few, meetings via Zoom, just as a resident. I'd be curious to know what are some things that maybe you learned from that or took from those meetings that now in your official capacity for the city, you think, might be helpful in terms of like helping us deliver on some of the goals that we've talked about.
sure, I really appreciated how you brought community groups like the Revere Housing Coalition to participate and learn from people with lived experience in community organizing, as well as I think I have my own ideas of how we can potentially fund the board and other affordable housing efforts, such as the Home ARP funding that the home jurisdiction in the North Suburban Consortium has received from the home program, about $7.2 million, and Revere is eligible for a portion of that funding. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or welcoming?
Good evening and welcome. Welcome to the city as well from an employment standpoint. Just when you were just mentioning that, are you working upstairs with getting grant funding? Is that something that you're going to be involved with for housing?
Potentially.
Okay, great.
Right now, my understanding, the main essential projects that I'll be working on is leading and facilitating the housing production plan, serving as a city liaison to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, and working with Tom on the MBTA's compliance and other areas of improvement to either getting us in compliance and working towards reaching the 10% of our fair share of affordable housing.
Sure, great. No, certainly if there's funds out there that we can obtain through grant, obviously, that we can help sustain the mission for the Affordable Housing Trust, that would be fantastic. So I'll be poking Tom about that a little bit more down the road then.
Great.
Thank
yeah.
you.
And although
welcome.
this is although this is my third day here, I do have expertise in ARPA and procurement, so any general questions regarding those two, be happy to answer.
Don't worry, I'm going to let you off the hook for today. But no, I look forward to our continued work together and appreciate you being here. So moving forward, I'm going to get into what I think should be the bulk of, I know it's a pretty speedy agenda today. I think a lot of people want to go see In the Heights, which is great, so that's super exciting. But one thing that I know some of us, certainly myself, but then a few other people just in various capacities have worked on is kind of advancing the idea of doing an affordable homeownership project with our Affordable Housing Trust Fund funds. And it seems to be, and I'm going to open this up to discussion if people agree or disagree, that there's a pretty strong consensus that that's kind of like a first, a priority, if not the first priority, you know, as in terms of something that's an actionable thing that we can do, that we have a lot of consensus around, that people like agree is a good idea and is something that we want to pursue. Certainly, we heard the presentation from Mass Housing, and then sort of the way it's worked in some other communities where there's the opportunity to create AMI, restricted home ownership opportunities for folks, for first-time home buyers. And so I think as a concept, we generally all kind of agree that that's a good idea. And I think that with around 880,000 or so in the fund, we might not like quite have enough to do a project like that well yet, but we're close, you know. And so if we could find an additional source of funding, it would give us the ability to do something like what we discussed. Now, one of the things that I've tried to work on and think about is how do we actionalize, how do we actually make the rubber hit the road with doing something like that? Because I'm not sure it would be the best approach for us to just kind of do everything in-house as a volunteer board of like first buying the property and then managing the financing and like managing and overseeing the work that gets done, and then also managing and overseeing the lottery and the eligibility process. So I've been trying to pursue and learn more about different options to how to get help with that, you know, whether that be through consulting services or through working with nonprofits. And I know a few of us were on a really productive call with James Katsaris, who's the regional director of Habitat for Humanity in Greater Boston. He wanted to be with us for this meeting today, but he actually has to speak to the Boston City Council today. But he's going to be with us next month. But I think everyone is basically familiar with Habitat for Humanity as a general concept. I think maybe people have in their minds mostly that all they do is like kind of build completely new houses. And that is a big part of what they do. Obviously, you're not going to see a lot of that necessarily in Revere because we don't have a lot of just wide open space to go out and build new houses. But what they do is they do either rebuild, you know, on pieces of land where there were houses before, or they could do a complete renovation of a property that exists and maybe needs a lot of work. And it works very similarly to how you may envision Habitat for Humanity from seeing it in the media or in the news, where they use private fundraising and volunteers to do a lot of that work on the property. Based on my conversations with them, it seems like there's a lot of really positive opportunity to work with them because they basically do essentially what we'd be trying to do anyway, where they would come into possession of a property either through partnership with the city or it gets donated or something. And then they have their own eligibility guidelines that are based on the fair housing law for, you know, who counts as being within an AMI range for Habitat for Humanity. And then if they sign up for the program, if they get selected and they agree to put in basically 300 hours of sweat equity into the project, in addition to some classes that Habitat for Humanity offers around home ownership, then they're able to move into this property once it's built or rebuilt or reconstructed. So essentially, the way I envision a potential partnership with Habitat working would be that the AHTF could theoretically put up the funds to purchase a piece of property, and, you know, deed restrict and work with Habitat for Humanity, and then kind of turn it over to them to project manage it, where they have experience in doing this, in taking applications, determining who's eligible, holding a fair lottery, and then kind of project managing the bringing in the volunteers and, you know, making sure the work is done to a certain standard. I think there's pros and cons to this. I think obviously the cons to start with would be, we wouldn't be necessarily in complete control of the process in the sense of if we have certain eligibility guidelines that we want to put in place that might be different from what Habitat does for whatever reason, we'd kind of have to adhere to their guidelines because it would be their project. So that's a con. The pro is, obviously, these guys are professionals. They've done projects like this. They have a great record of success of doing projects like this. And it would take some of the administrative burden off of us, and frankly, probably save us some money too, since we wouldn't be hiring contractors and such to do some of the repairs and work that would be needed to be done. You know, any property that we could get at a reasonable price, obviously, is probably gonna require a significant amount of financial investment. And to be able to have that philanthropically supported through Habitat for Humanity could really increase the like bang for buck that we get as a board for doing this project. So I don't expect to make any like final decisions on this, and I think really detailed questions about it we should probably hold for when James can join us. But I did want to just put this out there as a discussion topic, see what folks think about it. If you had questions, I can try to answer them based on my conversations with Habitat. And if I can't answer them, then I'll hold them and make sure that we can get answers to them next time. And I extend that to Lorena and then also to Anayo, who's on the Zoom. And then I think Laura Christopher is on the Zoom with us as well. So any questions, thoughts, feedback?
It's not, okay, my question is related around what program, they have 4 programs that are the more cities use for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Is they have different deeded assistant, home develop assistant, and the other one is a bypass program. So we have decided yet what kind of program, or we are working on what programs we're gonna use for our Affordable Trust Fund.
So that's up to us. You know, I think we've identified broad contours, right? Like these are different types of programs that we are able to support. And then I think it's up to us, obviously, as a board to kind of eventually make a vote on what we want to do first. This Habitat partnership strikes me as a great opportunity to consider for the affordable homeownership piece of what we've set out. You know, and now how we might want to bracket out what percentage of our funding, you know, that we have for the year wants to go into this type of program versus another. I think that's something that we need to talk more about, you know, so we're not full steam ahead on any particular thing yet, but this is definitely something. And it seems like we have a pretty strong consensus that doing this type of program in some way is something that people can get on board with. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and you know, because I attended the meeting last week, and I tried to make a summarize because it was a lot of things that I was working on, and I'm gonna share with you. I just can't. And I share with you, and you read it, and after we decide. It was very interesting and give you ideas, because this is already projects already happened on the Metro West. So this is very interesting, so.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that what will be helpful is when James is able to present to the full group, he can give us like a slideshow of some of the work they've done, but they have done projects like this in Arlington, in Belmont, in Cambridge, in Chelsea, in Everett, Malden, Medford, Somerville. So they have experience working in the area on these types of projects. And frankly, one of the things that I found really appealing when we had the conversation with James is that because Habitat has such a strong brand name and like people kind of know who they are and what they do and the work that they do, that there was a lot of support even in communities where there may have been pockets of like resistance to doing affordable housing work. Because people have such a strong positive association with Habitat for Humanity. And so I view that as a positive, for lack of a better term, branding exercise, you know, as kind of a way to work with someone that I think, I'm sure 90% of people know and trust Habitat for Humanity and know what they do. And I think that that's a valuable thing. And Counselor, I know that you have to run soon, so if you have anything that you want to add on this piece, or great. Well, and we will try to, I'll catch you up, as I know you have to get, and so let's give a shout out to In the Heights, and I know you're not the only one with family performing, so we're really proud of every single one of them and hope that's a great show.
It's gonna be a great show.
Yeah.
Can't wait. We're heading over there now, so.
Awesome, well, enjoy it. We don't have too much left on the agenda, but I just want to just make sure that other folks have an opportunity to, if you have questions, thoughts on the Habitat for Humanity piece, fire away. And this goes out to the folks on Zoom as well.
I can quickly jump in. I was just talking to Dean. I'm in no way volunteering any specific groups' labor efforts, but as we move forward, carving out, different partnerships with nonprofits and groups to complete these renovations, whether it's a new build or just a simple renovation, I think, inquiring to the vocational school with their apprenticeship programs. I know they have a group of younger kids working on the Historical Society building, and I've heard really, really good things about the program. So just, thinking out to them as well as a learning opportunity for them to get more skills and, to help us out if we ever do any smaller projects. I think that would be a good partnership to explore as well.
So what I'm hearing is that you're volunteering to put the hard hat on, and yeah, all right, good. Any other feedback or thoughts?
Well, I agree. I think we need to go to CDAC. I think we need to go to Mass Housing, and see where we get the most bang for our buck. I do believe from a development standpoint, and I've with the Housing Authority, I've been to many different meetings throughout the state with other housing authorities that are trying to create and add additional public housing and affordable housing. That the one thing that I've heard from people is to start small, to do it. To start, because you're gonna find the bumps in the road, you're gonna figure out how to get through them, and then that'll enable you to get through a bigger picture, a bigger project down the road. I think this, right, so you have two different components. It's one is just finding a property that's affordable enough for us to buy it, and then being able to turn it over to somebody who can afford that property, and then there might be a means, they're now gonna have to have it either subsidized or funded, to maintain it. I know the Housing Authority, and I've been brainstorming, we have an affordable housing home ownership program, and if there was a way where, right, the Affordable Housing Trust, perhaps found a home, had it renovated, we have wait lists in place where we could say to people, all right, so now you can perhaps buy this home, all the wait list stuff's done for us. We don't have to go third party on that. And as we get bigger, I know there's a meeting with CHAPA, but it's fantastic. I know when Crystal Cornehay was the head of DHCD, she was the one that really brought leveraged housing into the forefront. And I know with Kate Racer that DHCD is also a holder and a distributor of vouchers. And I believe in Malden, they've done some great things where they've bought some storefronts with some apartments on top of it. And DHCD actually gave the development funding and some vouchers, which subsidize those units on top. Maybe that's the next piece as we get bigger. But to start with one place, and I think Claire, I thought she brought up a great point in going on to some of those technical schools and vocational schools. I know they worked doing this kind of work in with housing authorities throughout the state. I know they built a garage in Bedford that was Shawsheen Tech years ago for the Bedford Housing Authority. I know they've done some work in Billerica for their housing authority. So, to get them experience in going in there and renovating properties, I think is a great idea.
Thank you, Dean. And it's funny, Laura, I see Laura dropped something in the chat, and she kind of read my mind because I was going to call you out because I know that through Laura's work with Mass Development and the TDI district in Shirley Ave, we've talked about some similar projects to what you talked about, like maybe the potential to do ground level with the part and things like that and support that type of work. She dropped a comment in the chat, which I'm going to read out loud for all. Related to Dean's point, I'm interested and curious to learn more about the potential to support homeownership, critical repairs, or aging in place programs. Not to say instead of these other projects, but just keeping the mix of possibilities to program meet the goals and mission of the board. So I think that's exactly right. And she added, she agrees with your point about starting small, which I think is kind of, we want to make sure that we're biting off something that we can chew for our first project. Laura, I hope I accurately represented the points that you were looking to make there. I don't know if you have anything else that you wanted to add. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. She said yes, so that's good. And anyone else? I know Anayo, I think, is the only one we haven't heard from yet on this. I think he's on the Zoom.
No, I think it's, sorry, the exciting opportunity. As you mentioned earlier, it's a great organization with a great reputation. I'm looking forward to more details, either through presentations or literature, so that we can start to put together a timeline of events.
Terrific. And then the last thing I'll add on the habitat piece is that in Tom's notes to me for this meeting, he mentioned that he's done some work with them in Fitchburg, and that they were able to put some small dollars into some pretty impactful projects. And that another thing that is a possibility, which frankly could add to our bang for our buck ability, is the possibility to dig into municipally owned properties or tax title properties where, rather than, or an RFP could be designed for a property and tax title that's basically such that someone like Habitat for Humanity would be the right fit to bid on it, and have it really specifically designed for an affordable homeownership opportunity. And that would be an opportunity for us to maybe get a property without having to outlay $700,000, $800,000 for a 2 or 3 family property, and that would free up money for us to do other things, repair projects, rental assistance, you name it. So I think that we have a great starting point for this. I think it seems like, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, so I just want someone to tell me if you think I am, that it would be great to have James from Habitat come to our next meeting. Also at the next meeting, get some updates from Tom and Lorena about city properties or tax title properties that might fit into this. And then, oh, we have a dog here. Hello. And sorry, I got distracted because the dog walked in, and Paul too, but mostly the dog, sorry. And really open up a conversation about whether this is something we can do, like what kind of funds outlay we'd have to put out to do it right, get a sense of what kind of money would have to be involved in that, and then also have a conversation amongst ourselves about whether we'd want to go through Habitat or we'd want to try to do a project in a different way. But really just, this is an avenue that we should be pursuing and start to hone in on at the next meeting. So that's kind of where I think we're at, but I just want to make sure that I'm picking up on everyone's vibe correctly before I go full steam ahead here. Yeah, terrific. Awesome. Any other thoughts on the affordable home ownership project before we?
Next, I'm gonna send you guys the email with the all programs that another Fort Trust Fund in another city is working on, and try to get more information about it. This is that I'm gonna send all minutes from that presentation that I was last week on the Federal Trust Bank. So I'm gonna share with you, and I hope so we can work more deep on our Affordable Trust Fund.
Thank you for that. Once we have it, we'll post that on the AHTF website too.
Yeah, they have a different, the programs like a preservation, the house preservation, direct assistance. So they have different that we can work on our city for rental and for ownership. That he said about with the housing authority, working also with the mass housing, the mass streams. They have different things that are not just for rental, also for the home ownership. So he's trying to, our goals from our mission statement and goals, try to working with all the elements that we can get it around.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the updates. With that, we're going to move just into other or late items. So if anyone has anything else that they want to add to the agenda that wasn't on the preliminary agenda. Seeing none, also room for public comment. I do see we have at least one person on the Zoom, so not sure if anyone wanted to offer a public comment. If not, then I think this is our speediest meeting ever. But don't get used to it, because we're going to start getting into the business end of things soon. Because it's going to be, we've been very fortunate to have guests at a lot of our meetings, and James was going to be our guest, this week. Totally understand that he had to make a time-sensitive presentation, but we look forward to really digging into opportunities for partnership with Habitat, and also to hearing from Lorena and Tom about affordable homeownership opportunities and how we could maybe work with tax title properties. So with that, if no one else has any other comments, questions, thoughts, we will gavel out the meeting.